"We want a peaceful Thanksgiving with Lila and her family this year," my parents texted. "It's better if you don't come. Lila's announcing her third pregnancy, and we don't need your cold, work-obsessed energy souring the moment. You understand, right?" I stared at my phone screen, my fingertips gliding lightly across the tempered glass without a single flicker of emotion. Pinned to the corner of the desk was the acknowledgement of receipt for the FBI identity theft case. Beside it, a forensic handwriting analysis report. On the 3 copies of the bank loan contracts, the forged signatures were marked with bright red, definitive non-match findings from the analysis. This text message wasn't the first thorn in my side. It was simply the straw that broke the camel's back, the final trigger for the takedown plan I'd laid out 6 months prior. They would never know that the quiet, antisocial older daughter who only ever messed around with computers. They talked about 36-year-old me was the founder and chief architect of CipherShield. Our company held core security contracts with the Pentagon. I held all of the company's core underlying code. I was the true gatekeeper of the entire system. Yet in their eyes, I would never measure up to my 32-year-old sister Lila, their golden child, the mommy influencer who'd built up 120,000 followers on Instagram, whose rent was still covered by our parents' handouts. This favoritism had been ingrained in us since the day we were old enough to form memories. When Lila graduated high school, they threw her a $30,000 party at the suburban country club with 100 guests, a professional DJ, and full catering service. When I graduated summa cum laude from Stanford's computer science program, they said Lila had a cheerleading championship, refused to even attend the ceremony, and only sent me a $200 Amazon gift card afterward. When Lila switched majors 3 times at community college, they covered every cent of her tuition and living expenses in full, even picking up the tab for her Cancun vacation with friends. I got through Stanford on a full-ride scholarship, and when I worked myself into the hospital with a bleeding toward promoting Lila's influencer account. The starkest contrast came with the biggest milestones of our lives. 2 years ago, for Lila's wedding, they footed the entire $80,000 bill, a destination bachelorette party, a haute couture wedding gown, the country club ballroom. 6 years ago, when I got engaged to my ex-fiancé, they only handed me a $500 check and said, "A wedding between 2 women doesn't need to be some big, wasteful production." That engagement ultimately fell apart, half from the crushing pressure of building a company from the ground up, and half from the gut punch of watching my fiancé's parents plan their daughter's wedding with unbridled, joyful excitement, and realizing in that moment that I would never get a single shred of genuine, heartfelt blessing from my own family. Even everything I'd built over 10 years of blood, sweat, and sleepless nights meant absolutely nothing to them. The day CipherShield went public, the second I rang the opening bell, I called home. My mom only said a flat, dismissive, "Oh, that's nice," then rushed to get off the phone, saying Lila was bringing the kids over and she needed to make them baby food purees. I insisted on hosting a celebratory dinner afterward, and they picked the trendy, Instagram-famous restaurant Lila loved. For the full 2 hours we were there, they spent an hour and a half talking about the twins' early development classes. The second I opened my mouth to say the company had landed a Department of Defense contract, my mom cut me off mid-sentence, launching into an excited rant about how many new followers Lila had gained on one of her recent videos. I excused myself halfway through dinner to go to the bathroom, stared at myself in the mirror, and suddenly laughed. I'd spent 10 years building a reputation and a platform that could safeguard the cybersecurity of half the United States. Yet I couldn't even secure a single minute of uninterrupted, respectful attention from my own family in the same room. "Sure, Mom, have a wonderful time," I typed my reply, my fingers steady, not a single tremor. They had no idea that the moment this text sent, they just triggered every single time bomb I planted. 8 months prior, with the windfall from my company's IPO, I'd bought a stone villa on the French Riviera. Outright, no mortgage. Built in 1920 by a French industrialist, it had cream-colored stone walls, a terracotta tile roof, and floor-to-ceiling windows spanning an entire wall, framing an unobstructed view of the Mediterranean Sea. It had an infinity pool that blurred the line between its water and the open sea, 8 en-suite bedrooms. More than enough space to sleep 20 people comfortably. I never told my parents or Lila about it. But the moment the sale closed, I called my Aunt Marnie. Marnie was my mom's older sister, and the only consistent light in my childhood. When I was 12 and wanted to learn to bake, my mom was too busy chauffeuring Lila to and from dance lessons. It was Marnie who picked me. Up every Saturday afternoon, brought me to her house, taught me to knead dough, and whip egg whites, and told me my Clara is so brilliant. You're going to accomplish everything you set your mind to. When my parents skipped he cheered louder than anyone else in the audience when my name was called, took me to the most upscale restaurant in the city after the ceremony and said to me, "Your parents have no idea what they're missing." They remembered my birthday, asked me about my company's projects and milestones, celebrated with me wholeheartedly when I mentioned the Villa Inn. The chat blew up within 3 minutes. 25 members of my extended family booked flights to Nice from Chicago, New York, Florida, even Canada. Class ticket, saying it was her first time leaving the country in 15. I'd had every single detail planned out 6 months in advance. I'd hired the top concierge team on the Riviera, arranged private car service from the airport for every family, and assigned each family a suite tailored perfectly to their preferences. Aunt Marnie and her husband, who loved waking with the sun, got the east-facing suite with panoramic sunrise views. Families with young children got the second-floor rooms with direct access to the garden. The teenage cousins got the converted carriage house next door with all the privacy and independence they wanted. I'd hired Antoine, a private chef who specialized in both classic American and refined French cuisine, and locked in a menu that blended beloved Thanksgiving traditions with bright, fresh Mediterranean flavors. I'd arranged private vineyard tastings, hands-on cooking classes with local chefs, a sunset yacht cruise along the coast, even planned a garden scavenger hunt and art workshops for the kids. I'd even hired a professional photographer to capture every moment of the week. My parents and Lila knew absolutely none of it. A week before Thanksgiving, my mom called, her voice thick with fake. "Clara, honey, I hope you're not too upset about Thanksgiving. It's just that Lila's twins have been so fussy lately, and your father can't handle all the noise." I stood on the villa's terrace, watching the crew hang and test the fairy lights as the pool lights flickered on with the setting sun, as if someone had crushed the entire night sky and poured it into the water. "Don't worry about me, Mom," I said, my voice perfectly calm and even. "I won't be alone." I heard unmistakable surprise in her voice, sharp with condescension. "Oh, you made plans with friends?" In her eyes, I would always be the unloved, unwanted oldest daughter, the one who had nothing and no one but them, who could never have a real circle of her own, let alone plans more exciting than their cozy family dinner. "Something like that," I said, no further explanation. "I've got things to wrap up here, so I'll let you go. Say hi to Leela and the kids from me." After I hung up, Aunt Marnie walked up from the car. She and her husband had arrived 2 days early to help with the final preparations. She pulled me into a tight hug, her eyes shining as she took in the villa around us. "Clara, this is incredible. Your parents have no idea what they're missing, do they?" I smiled and shook my head, gazing out at the endless Mediterranean stretching to the horizon. "They're about to." Over the next 2 days, family arrived one after another, every corner of the villa filled with laughter. The kitchen always hummed with activity and the warm, rich scent of something delicious. Kids ran and chased each other through the olive grove on the property. The teenagers put their phones down, huddled together, mapping out their sailing trip for the next day. Backwards to appease someone's fragile ego, only the easy, warm, unshakable comfort of what family is truly supposed to be. Not centering every single moment around. Not having your achievements dismissed and your needs pushed to the very bottom of the list every single time. It's equality, it's respect, it's being seen. It's showing up for each other fully and reciprocally. On Thanksgiving morning, I'd barely woken up when a cousin pulled me into an Instagram live stream. It was Layla streaming live, and nearly everyone in our extended family was watching. My parents were, their faces glowing with unbridled pride. She ranted that I'd refused. Cared about was money and my stupid company, but I wouldn't even buy my own nieces a pair of shoes. My mom jumped in beside her, heaving a dramatic sigh. "We raised her, gave her everything, and she doesn't have an ounce of gratitude in her body. Our Lila's the sweet one. She's with us every single day. She's the one who cares about us." My dad nodded along beside her, even holding up a screenshot of a bank transfer to the camera. "Look at this. This is all she sent us in an entire year. It's not even enough to cover what Leela spends on the kids' formula." The comments section of the live stream was flooded with agreement. calling me cold-hearted and ungrateful brat. Private messages from relatives poured in one after another, demanding. This is what they'd given me, total public humiliation in front of the entire internet and all our family and friends. And then Lila made the move that flipped the switch on her own destruction. To prove she was telling the truth, she held up a credit card supplementary bill. She got me a supplementary card with only a $1,000 limit. It's not even enough for a single Disney ticket for the kids. She had no idea this card was a deliberate loophole I'd left open half a year earlier. Once I discovered the identity theft, she'd even less idea that by flashing that bill live online for the whole world to see, she was publicly and irrefutably confirming her own guilt in identity theft and unauthorized use of my accounts. Every account fraudulently opened in my name. According to the lead FBI agent on the case, that was her fatal, self-inflicted mistake. I didn't lose my temper, I didn't snap back. I didn't argue with her in the live stream at all. Using my verified blue tick account, I simply posted one piece of evidence after another in her comment section. No emotional outbursts, only cold, undeniable facts. 1. The FBI identity theft case acknowledgement with clear case number and filing date from 6 months prior, confirming all signatures were forged. 3. A $200,000 joint guarantee contract signed by Lila's MC and agency, also with forged signatures, matching forensic conclusions, plus financial statements proving her company was already insolvent. 4. Complete transfer records to my parents and Lila over the past 5 years, totaling. With a screenshot of my parents' text at the time, Lila has a cheer competition. The comment section went dead silent, then erupted. Everyone who'd been insulting me a second earlier began spamming liar, leech, family of ingrates. Lila's face drained of color on camera. Her hands shook violently. She could barely hold her phone. Immediately afterward, Lila's account was banned. 3 major parenting brands she partnered with released termination statements on the spot. Her MC and agency's accounts were frozen by the bank. Even her husband Tyler posted a divorce announcement half an hour later, packed his bags. My phone buzzed, nonstop calls from my mom, my dad, Lila, one after another. I didn't answer a single one. Aunt Marnie walked over and squeezed my shoulder, her eyes full of concern. Clara, are you okay? That Thanksgiving dinner was the most peaceful, warmest meal of my life. The long table was set on the terrace. The sunset painted the Mediterranean peach pink. The private chef served perfectly roasted turkey seasoned with Provençal herbs alongside traditional stuffing, chestnut stew with Mediterranean flavors. The air was filled with clinking glasses and laughter. I raised my glass and looked at the faces of everyone who truly cared for me. I said only one thing. To real family. To the people who show up. 25 glasses lifted at once, everyone cheering to Clara. In that moment, 30-some years of pent-up hurt finally lifted. After dinner, I finally checked my phone. Dozens of texts from my mom, hysterical, cursing, then tearful pleading, saying she only loved Layla too much, that I shouldn't be so cruel, that I'd ruined my sister's life. My dad texted in his usual negotiating tone, calling me princess, saying family should stick together, demanding I drop the lawsuit and come home to talk. Lila's messages were nothing but vicious curses, accusing me of jealousy and ruining her life. I didn't reply to a single one. I just put my phone on silent. The next day, the photographer sent the edited photos. Relatives posted them frantically on Instagram and Facebook. Aunt Marnie uploaded a whole album with the caption, "When one door closes, another opens on the French Riviera. Thank you, Clara, for showing us what family time is really supposed to be, warm and genuine." In the photos, we laughed and clinked glasses. Kids ran through the garden. Behind us stretched the endless Mediterranean, bright sunlight, full of life. My parents' social circle imploded. Friends from the country club, church members, neighbors all commented below, asking why they weren't there, why they treated their oldest daughter this way, whether they'd really stolen her identity to take out loans. The respectable image they'd spent a lifetime building shattered completely in a single day. Lila called. This time I answered. She screamed hysterically. "How could you do this to us?" Mom nearly passed out crying. All her friends are asking her questions. She's completely humiliated. My voice was calm, unshaken. She made me cry for over 30 years. A little embarrassment is nothing. That's not the same, she shrieked. How can you be so cold? We're family. Family doesn't steal my identity to take out loans. Family doesn't forge my signature and nearly ruin my contract with the Department of Defense. Family doesn't smear me. In front of the whole world, I paused, listening to her sobs on the other end. You should have known this would happen the second you held up that bill on livestream. I gave you 6 months. Stop and I would have let it go. You chose this path. She fell quiet, then finally broke down. Our Thanksgiving was terrible. Dad watched sports the whole time. Mom checked her phone every 5 minutes. The kids cried nonstop. It was awful. Is that so? I smiled softly. What a shame. You got the quiet Thanksgiving you wanted, didn't you? I hung up and instructed my lawyers to formally launch legal proceedings, pursuing full charges against all 3 for financial fraud, forgery of documents, and identity theft. At the same time, I notified the property management office to retake ownership of the house I bought outright for my parents and begin eviction proceedings. I cut off all financial support, leaving them with no way out. They paid the steepest price for their greed and favoritism. Leila not only had to repay the $420,000 in loans, but also faced up to 10 years in prison. Her influencer career was finished and everyone had abandoned her. My parents were not only evicted from their home, but also faced legal liability. As accomplices, they became outcasts among friends and relatives, the laughingstock of everyone they knew. As for me, I spent the most wonderful week in my French villa with the family, who truly loved me. We went wine tasting at vineyards, wandered through local markets, sailed on yachts to watch sunsets. Kids splashed in the pool. Elders sat on the terrace chatting in the sun. Every day was filled with laughter. A week later, the relatives began to head home one by one before she left. Aunt Marnie pulled me into a hug and said, "They'll find some way to show up for Christmas, you know? Be ready." I smiled and nodded, nodding at a confirmed order on my phone. Christmas is already planned. I bought a chalet in the Swiss Alps. Flights for everyone are booked. Her eyes widened. You have a chalet too? Bought it in the spring, I said, raising an eyebrow. About time we started. Our own holiday traditions, don't you think? After seeing off the last of my family, I stood on the terrace watching the Mediterranean sunset. My phone vibrated again, a text from my mom. Honey, about Christmas. Your dad and I have been thinking. I didn't open it, just locked the screen. Let them wonder. Let them wait. Let them finally know what it feels like to be left out, standing outside, looking in. I finally understood. The best revenge was never hysterical fighting or screaming accusations. It was building a world of your own, living a life they could never reach. They tried so hard to keep you beneath them, not knowing you'd already climbed to the top, surrounded by people who truly loved you with a view they would never see in their lifetimes. Christmas in the Alps. Snow covered the mountains. The fireplace in the chalet blazed warmly. Outside, the ski resort lights twinkled. Inside, laughter filled the air alongside the rich scent of hot chocolate. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing at the distant snow-capped peaks, and raised my glass. I was no longer the overlooked, always last oldest daughter. I was the master of my own life, the anchor of this warm, chosen family, the light in my own world. Later, I posted only one photo from Thanksgiving on my Instagram. I stood on the villa's terrace back to the Mediterranean sunset, holding a glass of champagne. No smile, no bitterness, only a peace I'd never felt before. The caption was just one sentence. Family is who shows up. No blame, no showboating. Not one extra word. This was my silent victory for myself.